Welcome to the Papyrus International Sunday News Round, your comprehensive recap of the week's major developments from around the world. From shifting geopolitical alliances and security flashpoints to economic movements, humanitarian challenges, climate concerns, and cultural milestones, this past week underscored the interconnected nature of today's global landscape. I am Christiana Barbayo. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. Africa. Security, elections, and economic recovery dominate continental agenda. Europe. Political shifts, war fatigue, and economic pressures shape policy debates. Middle East. Ceasefire efforts, regional tensions, and humanitarian crisis continue. Asia. Economic slowdowns, strategic rivalries, and climate challenges emerge. North America. Politics, migration, and market volatility take center stage. South America. Economic reforms, social protests, and environmental protection. Oceania. Climate resilience and regional security drive policy focus. Across Africa, security, governance, and economic recovery remained dominant themes. In West and Central Africa, governments intensified operations against insurgent groups, while regional blocs pushed for stronger intelligence sharing. Several countries advanced electoral reforms and voter registration efforts amid calls for transparency and peaceful polls. On the economic front, African finance ministers engaged with international partners to manage debt, attract investment, and stabilize currencies as inflation continued to pressure households. Europe. Europe continued to grapple with political realignment and economic uncertainty. In Eastern Europe, the ongoing war in Ukraine remained a central concern, with renewed diplomatic efforts aimed at conflict de-escalation, even as military aid discussions persisted. Western European nations faced rising energy costs, labor strikes, and migration pressures, prompting debates over fiscal discipline and social protection. The European Union advanced discussions on defense coordination, climate targets, and digital regulation, seeking greater strategic autonomy. Middle East. The Middle East witnessed fragile diplomacy alongside persistent instability. Ceasefire negotiations continued in conflict zones, while humanitarian agencies warned of worsening civilian conditions, including food shortages and displacement. Regional powers engaged in talks aimed at reducing proxy conflicts, even as tensions flared over maritime security and airspace violations. Oil-producing states monitored global prices closely, balancing production decisions with fiscal planning and diversification goals. Asia. Asia's week was marked by economic recalibration and strategic rivalry. Major economies reported slower growth, prompting central banks to reassess interest rate policies. In East Asia, diplomatic engagements sought to manage tensions in contested maritime regions, while South Asia focused on election preparations and economic stabilization. Climate-related challenges, including floods, heat waves, and air pollution, reinforced calls for regional cooperation on environmental resilience. North America. In North America, politics and economic policy dominated headlines. The United States navigated intense political debates, including migration, fiscal spending, and foreign policy priorities. Markets reacted to inflation data and central bank signals, with investors closely watching interest rate trajectories. Canada and Mexico advanced discussions on trade, border management, and climate commitments, reinforcing regional cooperation. South America. South America experienced a mix of economic reform efforts and social mobilization. Governments pushed austerity and restructuring measures aimed at stabilizing finances, while labor groups and civil society expressed concerns over social impacts. Environmental protection remained a priority, particularly in the Amazon basin, where international partners emphasized conservation and sustainable development. Oceania. In Oceania, Climate resilience and regional security were central themes. Australia and Pacific Island nations strengthened cooperation on climate adaptation, disaster response, and maritime security. Leaders highlighted the urgency of protecting coastal communities threatened by rising sea levels and extreme weather. Global economy. Globally, markets showed mixed performance. Investors weighed inflation trends, geopolitical risks, and supply chain adjustments. International institutions renewed calls for coordinated policy action to support growth while managing debt vulnerabilities in developing economies. Science and technology. Global health agencies continued monitoring infectious disease outbreaks while emphasizing vaccination and preparedness. Advances in artificial intelligence and renewable energy attracted investment, raising discussions on ethics, regulation, and workforce adaptation. Culture, sports, and human interest. Across continents, artists, athletes, and innovators made headlines. International tournaments showcased rising talent, while cultural productions crossed borders, reinforcing shared global narratives. And that wraps up the Papyrus International Sunday News Round, a snapshot of the forces shaping our world this week. From diplomacy to development, conflict to creativity, the global story remains one of challenge, adaptation, and resilience. Thank you for watching. For deeper insight and continuous updates, stay connected to thepapyrusdaily.com. I am Christiana Babayo. Have a peaceful Sunday and a productive week ahead.